Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. The Caribbean Gender Alliance is a regional partnership of organizations working to promote healthy gender relations across the Caribbean. Its chair, Nadella Oya, she joins us to discuss work inside the 16 Days of Activism and beyond. Greetings, Nadella. We recently had a conversation where someone stated that the point of emphasis, it seems to stay on the perpetrator, the crime committed against what victim, and whether or not punitive actions brought against them. But I heard that CGA has a slightly different focus.
So the Caribbean Gender Alliance is, we really are more focused on how it is genders can work together. And again, we have to be very mindful of what we mean when it is we speak about gender, because even that is usually confused with sex. And so it's important for us to understand how we need to adjust our language in the region. We have people that identify as male and female, and we have people that identify as gender fluid. I was sharing recently with a group of persons how 5 years ago, we had one of our youth participants who was transitioning, and he was transitioning from female to male. And of course, it was new to all of us in the group. And we actually felt very privileged to be able to create a safe space for that young person. They were 19 at the time, and he would be 24 now. So you can imagine that, this is something that, again, we have to be mindful of. And so when we talk about genders interacting and engaging with each other in a healthy way, that is really at the core of what we're doing. It's not about branding males as perpetrators only, because again, hurt people hurt people. So if it is you have someone that has been whether it's abuse or some sort of unfortunate type of injustice, it's not just about again pinning men and boys as the baddies and saying that women and girls require a certain type of treatment. Yes, we do have a focus on the issues regarding the women's movement. We will never, ever deny that. I mean, it is important for us to create spaces where women and girls can feel safe, can feel that they're enjoying equal rights. However, you can't have the help for women and girls or have them or have us enjoy what we need when the day comes in terms of our schooling, our work, our education, our ability to show up in our families and households and enjoy, enjoy having families and enjoy our household responsibilities and understanding that it's shared with our partners. The only way that we can enjoy that is if it is a healthy engagement of men and boys. And I do need to make the point as well that when we speak about women and girls, we also include trans women as well. So it's important to really understand that this is an ecosystem that we're working within.
But while we're moving towards that ecosystem though, and more than once I heard you talk about spaces of safety, how do we do so with grace? Interacting on a person going through with a person going through a transition, the pronoun might slip sometimes, and if a mistake is made, it seems as though all fall down. But how do we move together towards that common understanding?
So, Dike, I'm really glad that you brought that up. The reality is that all of this, whether it is we're talking about gender issues, if we're talking about race issues, if we're talking about folks of different economic standing, any human rights issue has to be underscored by a certain level of tolerance, right? And tolerance is one of the watchwords of Trinidad and Tobago, and it seems to be one of the tougher ones. We have discipline, we have production, but that tolerance part is something that always creeps up. And again, I'm referencing Trinidad and Tobago. In the Caribbean, it is also a wider situation. It's also an issue for our diasporic brothers and sisters. When it is we're put in specific situations, it makes it will challenge what would have been our socialization. So in terms of like the pronoun use as a good example, everyone is still learning pronouns. And even when you learn whatever the current pronouns that are politically correct or that would be sensitive to someone's particular aspect of how they identify, new ones come up. So it's about whether it is you have an interest in learning, whether you have an interest in being tolerant of your fellow man and woman. It is, and look, I'm saying man and woman, and someone might criticize me for just referencing men and women alone, or males and females, because again, there are folks that don't necessarily identify as male or female. And so it is about tolerance. I am still learning. Just because I'm part of the Caribbean Gender Alliance does not mean that I will know everything right away. So I do absolutely rely on my colleagues in the sector. So for instance, CAISO, Sex and Gender Justice, the very good folks there are always helping us with coming up to scratch in terms of LGBTQ plus issues, as well as what is the proper wording to use. And you have to rely on that. You have to be open to the learning, and you have to be willing to be tolerant of what is happening. I know, I understand that there will be very religious people, there will be very traditional folks that will be like, forget that. And I am just simply here to say that the human spectrum that we all sit and reside on, you're going to encounter people in your own families, in your own church communities, in your geographical communities, that will have some sort of gender identity that your Bible, your Quran, your whatever holy book you're looking at and looking to, and what your religious leaders might be, preaching and teaching, they will not fit into that particular spectrum or realm. So it means that we do again have to exercise a certain level of tolerance, and it's important because this is where the world not is going. This is where the world always has been. It's just a little more comfortable now for people to be able to express their identities. And when I say a little more comfortable, I don't mean full comfort just yet, because we're not there yet. But it is definitely, there is momentum in the teaching and in the movement and in the understanding of how folks need to work together and to express how they engage with each other.
And with that, we take a short break. Now we're speaking with Chair of the Caribbean Gender Alliance, Nadella Oya. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We are speaking with Nadella Oya, Chair of the Caribbean Gender Alliance, about issues inside and wider than the 16 Days of Activism. Now, I want to ask about the data sets that influence the work that you do. May they be anecdotal, survey mechanisms, or otherwise? Thanks.
So initially, when you do have people that are collecting data, there is not a lot of relevant data regarding gender issues. You're going to get, so for instance, a good example would be what people refer to as domestic violence or gender-based violence. Even if you were to look at a select number of Caribbean territories, and remember there are over 20-something countries in the Caribbean, the fact that we are separated by water, the fact that we have to rely, and thankfully we do have technology, but we have to rely on people from different agencies bringing information together so that we can get a holistic look at what is happening in the region. That's not something that's in a very healthy space right now. We also have to understand that with data collection, to answer your specific question, people that collect data are looking at data that serves them. So what law enforcement will collect will be very different to what academia will collect. And so we have to kind of find where they intersect in order to be able to craft projects and programs. More than just projects, we need multi-year long programs to really see the kind of impact that any kind of initiative or intervention will do. So let's take, for example, if we wanted to change behavior regarding how girls and boys interacted when they were the primary or secondary school age groups, to then look at how they then present themselves in their young adulthood and when they start their families. If we were to look at the health and family life education curricula, for instance, which is a great potential mechanism for us to be able to teach certain aspects of how young people can engage with each other, just things in terms of conflict resolution, self-regulating techniques, de-escalation techniques when you're in a situation that can lead to domestic violence in your future adult life. If we were to use those mechanisms, teach it now, Dike. Take the 5 to 12-year-olds who are in primary school now in the year 2002 across the Caribbean. Give them, even if it's 2 lessons. And again, we understand that there are people that are not too hip on the comprehensive sex and sexuality education, which we will call CSE, if that's how it's referred to. They think sex ed is something that's bad, and we're teaching children about sex and how to have sex. That's not the case. So when it is, we were to teach this for 1 year, you then pitch forward 5 years. All of the 5-year-olds are now 10 years old. All of the 12-year-olds are now 17 years old. And they're now navigating different spaces. That is the kind of data that we need to use. We need to check and see what are people's opinions and perspectives now, their families, the children, etc. Teach some of the concepts that will allow them to engage with each other with more tolerance and with more understanding of themselves as well. What do their bodies do? What are these things for?
I think that understanding is so important, and it's so important, and the fact that you speak about those different levels. Now, the way that you ready or you read and spell in primary school is very different from the way that is done on a tertiary level institution. And I see sometimes that no matter the level, once you talk about sex education, it has to be here, look everything. But in finding and using that data applicable to your efforts though, you also need to make room for gaps and challenges to those data sets due to perceived stigma, fear of repercussion, etc. How do you deal with that while creating those year-long programs?
So again, it's multi-year programs, and you're very right. You do have to look at the gaps. You have to look at why would someone not come to make a report? Why, if it is they do start to make a report, they retract the report or they don't continue with it. If it is they even get to the stage of appearing in a court, why are they not following through? Where are the support services? So that is actually a big area that we would like to focus on. It's a big nut to crack. Our justice systems across the Caribbean are not in the healthiest of states. What is healthy, though, is that there are people that are willing to see some level of justice reform, some level of educational reform. And if it is we can target the education systems, it means that we won't have that much to do in terms of the reporting and follow through, because again, we're dealing with it from the perspective of behavior change, of socializing that teaches you tolerance, that teaches you how to navigate conflict, as opposed to when it is someone get their eye black up, or you have financial abuse happening in a family or psychological abuse happening of children. And again, I'm saying those because we tend to look at the physical abuse only, and of course talking about child sexual abuse or any kind of sexual abuse, rape is something that is not spoken about still comfortably. So when it is we look at how it is we can adjust the teaching, then it means that there will be a reduction in the response mechanisms. Now, in terms of the gaps, as you said, for where people might not be reporting, it is again, that also requires some teaching and some behavior change. We need to let people know, even if you walk into a police station and the police officers are going to tell you some foolishness, which is not far-fetched. I've experienced it. I've had police officers ask, why, where were the children's parents? They're not even talking about why is the child being groomed online, and who's the perpetrator, and how do we deal with that? I've had a female police officer say to me that a child just needs licks. And this is a police officer in the child protection unit. So again, we needed to be able to educate the public to know what their rights are, what the laws are, and what they need to ask for when they go to make a report, because that is one of the things that deters people from making reports, the response of police officers. So it's not just about educating police officers and the judiciary. The public needs to be able to demand what is due to them in regards to getting resolution for any kind of abuse case that they come in to report. So it's education all around at the end of the day. And then with that education will come the change in thinking, the change in behavior, the change in attitude, and then we will get that social impact that we longing for.
And that education can also lead to empowerment, I believe. And in the brief time that we have in this conversation remaining, break down the campaign. I have the power to end the violence against women and girls.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. So what is amazing about this campaign, it started some time back. Last year in 2021, what we did, we had 30 organizations and Tobago that said, yes, we are going to jump on board with this one campaign and push this particular message. And as you said, it's beyond 16 days. This year, it's 80 organizations from across the region that have joined up to share the messaging around how it is we can end violence against women and girls. Dike, what is the most important thing about this campaign is that it is not about bringing awareness alone. It is actually teaching real tools, practical tools as to how everyday people can end violence against women and girls. Most of the ads will speak about, again, how can someone de-escalate a situation, teaches you how to self-regulate, how to manage conflict, how there's one piece that we have on the top tips for teens on how to handle unwanted sexual advances, something that you don't get practical lessons on. How do you just deal with that? So that to me has been the heartiest part of the campaign. Today we had a lot of conversations across the region, again, dealing with how it is you, what to expect if it is you reveal a HIV status. How can we stop killing women? Practical conversations, nothing too academic and esoteric and technocrat and government and too, nothing too political. Back to what can each individual do in order to end violence against women and girls in their everyday life. How does you talk to people? How does you respond to people if it is that they are doing something that might be considered sexual harassment? So the campaign is really about that. Again, it's regional, so that's amazing that we have people from Antigua, Barbuda, as far north as Bermuda. I mean, tiny Bermuda is up inside of the whole mix. Guyana, Suriname, Barbados, Grenada. It's amazing to see all of the Caribbean come together and really try to get the messaging out there in surround sound. So that is what is amazing about the campaign. People can get more information on CaribbeanGender.org, as well as go to any of the social media pages to get more information. We want people to use the tools that we put out there. That's the most important thing. We're not selling anything except solutions.
And we want to thank you.
We want to thank you so much for the work that you've been doing and continue to do. Nadella Oya, Chair of the Caribbean Gender Alliance, and on behalf of the entire TGT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth with me. Thank you so much for joining us.